Good morning. Here I am again sitting in the car. The last time I made this video was about 2 years ago, and here I am sitting in the car waiting for my son to finish his football training like I was last time. And I know so many of you have heard my story already, but it is just so powerful, and I really want to just bring you a measure of hope and healing this morning and tell you that it is possible to live a fully functional life where you are your most healthy, productive, joy-filled, satisfied self. So I'm going to tell you my journey, my story again on how I became a functional medicine provider, and actually what's happened over the last several years that wasn't in my last video. So as many of you know, I started my career as an emergency medicine physician. I loved what I did. I thought I was going to do it for forever, but in 2004, Scott, my husband, was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor, and he was given 2 to 5 years at that time to live. And so I stopped working. We were obviously quite shocked. He was scheduled for surgery, chemo, and radiation. We didn't know anything about functional or integrative medicine at that time, and he was scheduled for those things. And it truly is a miracle. His tumor started to shrink. It's an entirely different story, but we didn't know that right away, so I stopped working. He's fine at this point, but I stopped working and just wanted to spend as much time with my family as I could. And at that time, I was actually pregnant with our 5th child, and then subsequently had our 5th. So I had 5 kids within 5 years, 4 of which are boys, a husband that I thought was going to die within 2 to 5 years, and I was pretty overwhelmed, felt pretty awful, and just was tired, and my joints hurt, and I just knew I wasn't being a great mom or a great wife. Ended up going to the doctor and was diagnosed with lupus. And lupus is an autoimmune condition, meaning the body attacks itself. It's not known to be reversible, and typically people die earlier as a result of having that disease, either due to the treatments, which are immunosuppressives and steroids, those types of things, which were recommended for me, or they die as a result of the disease itself, which is attacking your kidneys, attacking your heart, attacking your joints, etc. It was not a good diagnosis to have, but I kind of put it off in the back of my mind because I was so overwhelmed by the health issues going on in my family. Told you about my husband and his miraculous healing, but he was not feeling great. He was exhausted. He'd gained weight. He didn't feel well. Our oldest son, the school was calling us on a regular basis, telling us that there was something very wrong with him and that they wanted him to be evaluated. So we took him in to be evaluated, and the first person we took him to told us that he was on the spectrum for autism. They, of course, wanted to give him some medication to manage his behavior at school. My husband and I, Scott and I, did not feel like that diagnosis made sense. So we made an appointment with another specialist, and we were told that he has ADHD and was not on the spectrum. Of course, that person wanted to also put him on medication to control his behavior. And again, you know, we knew there were some issues, but we just didn't feel like medication made sense, and we didn't also agree with that diagnosis. So we tried to get him into the best specialist around for child development issues, and by the time we got him into that appointment, he was around 8 years old, and he was diagnosed at that appointment with being psychotic and schizophrenic, as well as having some other issues. And of course, at that point, they wanted to start him on antipsychotic medications. Now, he was 8 years old. You can't even make those diagnoses in anybody younger than 18. So as parents, you're overwhelmed being told your child's psychotic and schizophrenic. As physicians, we also knew that that just didn't make sense. You can't make those diagnoses in anybody his age. But it was incredibly overwhelming. Our twins, 2.5 years younger, were both diagnosed with language learning disabilities. They were being pulled out of class for speech services and specialized tutoring. And our 4th truly did have ADHD. He couldn't sit at the dinner table, let alone, you know, go through 7 hours of class all day. So we did decide to take him in to see somebody. And of course, he was diagnosed with ADHD and started on medication. And at that point in our lives, we were so overwhelmed with everything that was going on. It just seemed easy to start him on medication. And we did. And within 2 weeks, he became suicidal and said he wanted to jump out of his window and that nobody loved him anymore. So of course, that was stopped. And over that same period of time, Scott was diagnosed with epilepsy as a result of his brain tumor. So as you can imagine, here we are, 2 physician family We were the most unhealthy, healthy people I knew. We didn't party, we didn't drink, we didn't smoke. We rarely went through fast food drive-through on the way to a sporting event or something like that. But we were so unhealthy. And I just couldn't understand why. I felt so hopeless and, as I mentioned, just so overwhelmed. And it was in my frustration and those feelings of hopelessness and being overwhelmed that I got on the computer and I typed in alternative therapies. And I came across functional medicine, and it was something that I'd never heard before. And it just made sense to me. I loved being an ER doctor because I loved figuring out what was wrong with people. And this made sense. Like, the idea of being able to figure out what was wrong with my family from a root cause perspective made so much sense. So I decided to jump in and pursue my education, not with the intention of opening a practice, but really with the intention of taking care of my family. And through my training, I became the first class of practitioners certified by the Institute for Functional Medicine. And in 2017, Scott and I actually were 2 out of only 121 physicians that were actually board certified in integrative medicine. But through my original training, I developed a proprietary process that I call Fully Functional. And that process really means there's 5 pillars to it. We need to identify underlying root issues, stressors, contributing factors, genetic variants, nutrient deficiencies, etc. We need to reduce those things that are negatively impacting our health. We need to optimize detoxification, optimize the way the body manages the things that are coming in contact with it on a daily basis. We need to support the immune system, support the body in general. And I wish I had had the support necessary to really make it kind of not a bumpy road, because it was really hard to change everybody's diet and take 7 people through this process of lifestyle and dietary changes without any significant support. So that's the 4th pillar. And the 5th pillar is to personalize, to take that information that we learn about ourselves, but me as the provider or the mom in that situation, to be able to, and wife, but to be able to take the information that I gathered and to be able to empower each person with understanding what works best for their body. So in the case of my older son, for all of us really, we identified a gluten and dairy sensitivity, so we pulled that out, we reduced that. We also identified genetic variant in all of us, something having to do with something called methylation. Pretty simple fix, actually. We required some methylated B vitamins. We worked on optimizing detoxification, so optimizing the way the body gets rid of the things that it comes in contact with on a daily basis. So urinating, bowel movements, sweating, exhaling. Your liver does something called biotransformation. I consider sleeping and dreaming a mental detox, and lymphatic drainage. And so we optimized all of those pathways, and then looked at what supportive nutrients would be helpful to support the immune system, as well as what could we be doing to support our bodies. And ultimately, I created a personalized plan for each individual person in our family. So, fast forward several years, I will tell you my oldest is a freshman in college. Nobody in a million years would say he's psychotic, schizophrenic, ADHD, or on the spectrum. I have no evidence of having lupus, and that's 5 years of being told I needed to be on steroids and immunosuppressive drugs from the rheumatologist, and I told you it's not known to be a reversible disease in traditional medicine. My twins, within 3 weeks of changing their diet and putting them on some basic supplements, the speech pathologist approached me and said they no longer qualify for speech services, and they went on in grade school and middle school to become straight A students and not require those speech services and specialized tutoring. They are sophomores in high school. I will tell you, they are not straight A, but they do quite well for themselves at this point. My 4th is still a pretty active guy. He's a freshman in high school, and he can sit through 7 hours of class, and in fact, AP classes without any difficulty at all. He probably talks too much, and sometimes I need to tell him to go run around the block, but he does quite well without taking any prescription medications to control his behavior or to give him better attention. And Scott hasn't had a seizure in 14 years. This February Super Bowl Sunday marked the 14th year since he was diagnosed with his brain tumor, and he hasn't had a seizure, like I said, in 14 years. and is obviously seeing patients with me and on this journey together. And so it's so exciting that friends and family started noticing what was happening in our own family and asked us to start taking care of them. And that's how Vine Healthcare was born. I started seeing patients 1 day a week, and then obviously we have quite a large office, and I've seen at this point over 1,700 patients, and we're really passionate about it. And we're really passionate about helping people become fully functional for life and taking them through those 5 pillars. But what I will tell you is that just going through that process doesn't mean for the rest of your life you're never going to have another health issue. And the reason I tell you that is because many people don't know that about 3 years ago, my daughter and I got incredibly ill. Emma was diagnosed with something called PANDAS, basically pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder as a result of strep, but she also was diagnosed with Lyme disease, Coxsackie virus, and several other infections, as well as likely a mold exposure. And I became quite ill, very, very ill as a result of mold exposure as well, and developed something called chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And it's something that I've been treating patients for in the office for quite some time, but when it happens to yourself, you're just, you're not even aware at times, especially when you're taking care of your child. And Emma was incredibly ill, and it was so overwhelming again, in that place of feeling hopeless and overwhelmed. And I had to go back, and I had to identify. We had to reduce. We had to optimize. We had to support and create a new personalized plan. And I just want to bring you hope. I just want to bring you that healing that I know is possible. I know many of you have been on a journey for a long time, looking for answers, trying to get the results that you want, and just not getting them. And so I want to tell you that through our processes, we are able to bring you that measure of hope. We're able to bring you that measure of healing. We offer retreats. We offer in-office consultations. We have some online programs that are going to be offered. We've got health coaching that could be done from a remote distance. There's so many things going on that our goal is really to help you become fully functional for life. And it is possible. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.